Imagine this, you're standing in front of a mirror, and for the first time in a long time, you don't recognize the person staring back at you. Not because you failed, but because, deep inside, you were meant for more than what life has recently turned you into. There's a moment, quiet but sharp, where you ask yourself, how did I get here? And an even more important question follows, what am I going to do about it? This is the moment that separates people who stay down from people who rise. Not when things finally get better, not when the timing is perfect, not when help magically arrives. But right here, in that uncomfortable, inconvenient moment where you realize this version of your life is no longer acceptable. People think a comeback starts with a victory. They think it starts with confidence, support, motivation, or some magical spark. It doesn't. A comeback starts in the dark, when no one is watching, when everything feels heavy and nothing feels possible. It starts when you decide, quietly, privately, fiercely, I'm not staying here. And that's why today's message matters. Because the world will try to tell you your comeback is about proving something to others. But the truth is far more powerful. The comeback is personal, it's raw, it's uncomfortable, it's a part of your story nobody else gets to write. So as you listen today, don't think about the people who doubted you, abandoned you, or underestimated you. Think about the part of you that refused to die, the part of you that's tired of shrinking, tired of surviving, tired of feeling like life is happening to you instead of through you. Because that part, the part you've ignored, silenced, or buried, is waking up. And once it wakes up, everything changes. Let's talk about that version of you, the one the world hasn't met yet, the one even while you haven't fully met yet, the comeback version. And trust me, they're not coming to play. They're coming to reclaim everything you lost, everything you forgot, and everything you thought you'd never be strong enough to reach. Let's begin. Your comeback doesn't begin when life finally gets easier. It doesn't begin when people start believing in you again or when circumstances magically align in your favor. It begins in a single, brutally honest moment, the moment you decide you're done playing small. Most people underestimate the power of that moment because it doesn't look dramatic. There's no applause, no lightning strike, no cinematic music rising in the background. It often happens in silence, sometimes in pain, sometimes in anger, sometimes in exhaustion, but always in truth. Playing small is not about lacking talent. It's not about lacking potential. It's about living beneath what you know you're capable of. It's waking up each day and shrinking yourself to fit into a life that doesn't challenge you, excite you, or reflect the intensity of the person you know you can be. It's saying yes when your whole body is begging you to say no. It's accepting less because somewhere along the way you convinced yourself you weren't allowed to want more. You don't choose to play small intentionally. It usually happens gradually. A little self-doubt here, a little fear there, one disappointment that stings, one setback that rattles your confidence. And slowly, almost invisibly, you begin to negotiate with yourself. You lower the bar. You quiet your voice. You stop raising your hand. Stop taking risks. Stop believing you deserve something greater. And the scariest part is how normal it begins to feel. Like maybe this is just how life is for you. Like maybe you should just be grateful for what you have and stop wanting what you know deep down was meant for you. But the truth is, simple playing small is a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken the moment you decide to break it. There comes a day when the discomfort of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of changing. When the price of playing small becomes too expensive. When you finally admit to yourself that shrinking is not protecting you, it's suffocating you. That day is the turning point. That day is the moment your comeback quietly begins. It's the moment you look at your life, every disappointment, every missed opportunity, every fear you've tiptoed around, and you finally say enough. Enough hiding your potential because others might feel threatened by it. Enough settling because you're scared to start over. Enough pretending you're fine with things that break your spirit. Enough waiting for a sign or permission or validation. The moment you decide you're done playing small, your energy shifts. You start noticing the places where you've been minimizing yourself. You see the patterns you've been tolerating. You begin asking bigger questions, demanding better answers, and raising your standards, not because you suddenly became fearless, but because you refuse to live another year, another month, another day stuck inside a version of yourself that doesn't honor your truth. This decision doesn't look glamorous. Sometimes it's made while sitting on the floor after another failed attempt. Sometimes it's made in a car, staring at the steering wheel, wondering how you drifted so far from the person you were supposed to become. Sometimes it's made in anger after someone underestimates you one time too many. And other times it's made in heartbreak, when you realize how much of yourself you've given away to people who didn't value it. But these moments of breaking are also moments of awakening. When you're done playing small, clarity hits you like cold water. You begin to take ownership not of what happened to you, but of what happens next. You recognize that no one is coming to build your comeback for you. It's a one-person job, and that truth is powerful, not discouraging, because it means you no longer have to wait on anything or anyone. The decision is yours. When you stop playing small, you also stop letting fear make your choices. Fear might still whisper, but it no longer commands. Doubt might still show up, but you don't let it drive. You realize that the path you want to walk requires courage, not comfort, and you finally decide you're willing to be uncomfortable. You're willing to be seen. You're willing to take risks, to bet on yourself, to stretch beyond what feels safe, because staying small has become the most unsafe place of all. The moment you decide you're done playing small, your mindset shifts from survival to creation. You start thinking in terms of possibilities instead of limitations. You stop saying, "I can't," and start asking, "How do I make this work?" You start taking actions aligned with the person you want to become rather than the person you've been settling for. And that's the real beginning of a comeback, not achieving more, becoming more. Becoming someone who refuses to accept a life that doesn't match their fire. This decision also forces you to confront your environment. You begin to recognize who encourages your growth and who benefits from your smallness. You start distancing yourself from voices that feed your insecurities or keep you comfortable in mediocrity. And you start gravitating toward challenges, toward effort, toward the discomfort that comes with expansion, because you understand now the life you want is on the other side of every fear you've been avoiding. Deciding you're done playing small doesn't mean everything changes instantly. It means you change instantly, and then everything else begins to follow. From that moment forward, every step you take is stronger. Every boundary you set is firmer. Every goal you pursue is bolder. You stop being afraid of wanting more. You stop apologizing for your ambition. You stop dimming your light because someone else prefers the dark. This moment, the moment you decide to stop playing small, is the spark of your comeback. Because a comeback is not about returning to who you were before you fell. It's about rising into someone entirely new, someone who finally chooses to live fully, honestly, and without apology. And that transformation starts the second you say, "I'm done shrinking, I'm done hiding, I'm done limiting myself. My comeback starts now." Pain has a way of convincing us it's the enemy. When something hurts mentally, emotionally, physically, our first instinct is to pull back, avoid it, or push it down. We treat pain like a threat instead of what it actually is: information. Pain is data. It's feedback. It's a message about what needs to change, what needs to be protected, what needs to be strengthened, and what needs to be released. When you stop reacting emotionally to pain and start analyzing it strategically, you unlock one of the most powerful tools for your comeback. Most people stay stuck because they misinterpret their pain. They think pain means they're broken, failing, or falling behind. They assume it means something is wrong with them, when in reality, pain is pointing directly at something that needs attention. The problem is that we often respond emotionally: panic, anger, guilt, shame, rather than stepping back and asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" Every setback carries information. Every disappointment contains a clue. Every heartbreak is a message. But you can't decode the message if you're too busy drowning in the emotion of it. Emotion clouds perception. Emotion makes the moment louder than the lesson. And while your feelings deserve acknowledgement, you cannot let them be the only voice in the room. When you treat pain emotionally, you get stuck in cycles. You focus on the story: "Why did this happen to me?" rather than the strategy: "What can I learn from this?" Emotional pain left unexamined becomes self-pity, resentment, or paralysis. But pain treated strategically becomes clarity, power, and direction. Think about all the times life hurt you, moments you were betrayed, overlooked, rejected, or underestimated. At the time, the pain felt personal, like an attack on your worth. But if you look at those moments through a strategic lens, you'll see data hiding inside them. You'll see boundaries you needed to set, people you needed to distance yourself from, skills you needed to develop, patterns you needed to break, strength you needed to build, insight you needed to grow. Pain is rarely about punishment. It's about preparation. But preparation doesn't feel good. Growth doesn't feel gentle. Evolution doesn't feel comfortable. That's why so many people avoid the very experiences that would make them stronger, wiser, and more capable. They fear the temporary discomfort and never gain the long-term advantage. When you begin to treat pain as data, you stop being afraid of it. You stop running from it. You stop avoiding the hard conversations, the difficult decisions, and the uncomfortable truths. Instead, you approach them with curiosity. What is this showing me? Suddenly, every challenge becomes a source of intelligence. If someone betrays you, what does that reveal about the signs you ignored? If a goal collapses, what does that reveal about the gaps in your preparation? If you feel anxious or overwhelmed, what does that reveal about boundaries you haven't enforced? If you keep repeating the same mistakes, what does that reveal about patterns you haven't confronted? Pain gives you data on all of it. You just need to be willing to read it. To use pain strategically, you must practice emotional discipline. That doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means not letting them run the show. Feel your emotions fully, but process them intelligently. Take the time to breathe, reflect, and observe. Don't react instantly. Don't make decisions in the heat of the moment. Give yourself space to step back and shift from emotion to analysis. Ask yourself questions that move you forward rather than questions that pull you deeper into distress. What is this pain trying to communicate? What belief or behavior does this challenge expose? What strengths is this moment forcing me to develop? How can I use this experience to become better, not bitter? Strategic questions open the door to growth. Emotional reactions often close it. When pain becomes data, you start seeing patterns. You recognize the situations that drain you. You identify the people who destabilize you. You notice the repeated lessons life keeps sending you, lessons that will keep repeating until you finally learn them. Pain is often the final warning that something is no longer aligned with who you are. It signals the need for change long before your mind acknowledges it. But if you're busy reacting emotionally, you miss the signal and stay stuck in cycles that slowly dismantle your confidence. Another powerful truth: pain reveals your thresholds. You learn what you can endure, what you can overcome, and where your breaking point truly lies. People underestimate their resilience because they've never examined how much they've already survived. They think pain means they are weak, when in reality, pain has been training them all along, testing their edges, expanding their limits, and stretching their capacity. This is why pain is essential to a comeback. Without the data pain provides, your comeback would have no direction, no focus, no blueprint. Strength without understanding can be reckless. Confidence without clarity can be fragile. But when your strength is informed by pain, when your confidence is shaped by what you've endured, you become unshakable. When you're building a comeback, pain will show up often. But instead of seeing it as a setback, you begin to see it as information that something is shifting, something is evolving. Pain becomes proof that you're pushing into new territory, leaving behind old versions of yourself. Pain becomes confirmation that growth is happening. Anyone who has trained their body knows this. Resistance creates strength. The same rule applies to life. Your job is not to avoid pain. Your job is to understand it. Use it as fuel, as guidance, as insight. The emotions will always be there: fear, sadness, frustration, but they don't have to control the narrative. What controls the narrative is the meaning you choose to assign to the pain. Pain will either imprison you or instruct you. And the difference lies in whether you react to it emotionally or study it strategically. The most powerful people aren't the ones who avoid hardship. They're the ones who learned how to interpret it. They're the ones who realize that pain carries information people miss when they react impulsively. They're the ones who turned pain into a weapon instead of a wound. Your comeback requires that shift. You cannot rise while clinging to emotional interpretations that keep you stuck. You must become the kind of person who pauses, observes, analyzes, and adapts. The kind of person who says, this hurts, but it's teaching me something, and I'm going to use what it teaches. Pain is data, it's direction, it's intelligence carved through experience. Use it. Don't fear it. Don't drown in it. Study it. Strategize around it. Let it sculpt the next version of you. Because once you learn to use pain strategically, you stop being controlled by it and you start being empowered by it. Rebuilding your life isn't something that happens naturally. It doesn't unfold automatically just because time passes or because you wish for a better future. Rebuilding is intentional. It's deliberate. It's a conscious act of shaping yourself into the person you need to become in order to rise. Strength isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you create piece by piece, choice by choice, day after day. And if you want your comeback to last, you have to understand that nothing about it will happen by accident. Most people assume strength is a personality trait, something you're either born with or you're not. But that belief is one of the biggest traps. Strength is not genetic. It's not handed down. It's not a lucky trait that only a few people possess. Real strength is crafted through effort, through discipline, through the moments that test you and the decisions you make afterward. Every strong person you've ever admired didn't wake up that way. They built themselves with intention, often in silence, often in struggle, often when no one believed in them. And that is precisely how you must approach your own rebuild. Rebuilding with intention means refusing to simply bounce back to the version of you that existed before the setback. That version is gone, and that's not a loss. It's an opportunity. It means you get to rebuild yourself smarter, stronger, and more aligned than ever. But to do that, you must stop repeating the habits, mindsets, and environments that weakened you in the first place. You can't build a new life on old patterns. You can't rise using the same thinking that caused you to fall. The first part of rebuilding intentionally is acknowledging the truth your old methods, your old boundaries, your old priorities weren't enough. That doesn't make you a failure, it makes you honest. And honesty is the foundation of growth. You have to sit with yourself and examine what truly contributed to the collapse. Was it lack of discipline, lack of direction, poor boundaries, people-pleasing, ignoring red flags, avoiding difficult decisions, pretending you were okay when you weren't? These answers are uncomfortable, but they're necessary. You cannot rebuild what you refuse to confront. Once you've faced your truth, rebuilding becomes a deliberate process of choosing who you want to become next, not who others want you to be, not who you used to be, who you want to be now. What qualities do you want to embody? What habits do you want to build? What environments do you want to operate in? What kind of strength do you want to cultivate? Emotional strength, mental strength, financial strength, physical strength, spiritual strength. Rebuilding with intention means designing the next version of yourself like an architect, not drifting into it like a leaf in the wind. And here's the part most people skip: you have to train for the life you want. Just like an athlete trains for the sport, you have to train for your future. If you want discipline, you build routines. If you want confidence, you take consistent action. If you want internal peace, you eliminate chaos and enforce boundaries. If you want resilience, you deliberately put yourself in situations that challenge you rather than hiding from discomfort. Strength is crafted. Every repetition counts. Every decision counts. Every small promise you keep to yourself becomes a brick in the foundation of the new you. Rebuilding also means upgrading your mental environment. You can't have a comeback with the same mindset that tolerated mediocrity. You must shift from scarcity to possibility, from fear to courage, from victimhood to responsibility. This doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means refusing to give your power away. It means talking to yourself differently, treating your thoughts as instructions rather than noise, becoming aware of the moments where you sabotage yourself, and choosing different responses. And the truth is, rebuilding with intention requires patience. Strength isn't instant. You won't see results on day one. There will be days where you feel like you're progressing, only to wake up the next morning and feel like you've slid backwards. That's normal. That's part of the process. Growth rarely happens in a straight line. But if you remain intentional, if you know exactly what you're working toward and why, you won't quit just because it's hard. You'll understand that difficulty is part of the crafting process. That pressure shapes you. That discomfort is the sculptor molding you into the person you are becoming. Rebuilding also demands that you evaluate the people around you. Some individuals will not survive the upgrade you're making. They were aligned with your old self, not the version you're creating now. You have to be willing to release people who drain you, distract you, or keep you small. Not because you don't care about them, but because you care about your future more. You can't rebuild your life while surrounding yourself with forces that are determined to keep you in the rubble. Intention means choosing relationships that support your growth instead of your stagnation. And perhaps the most powerful part of rebuilding with intention is learning to trust yourself again. After setbacks, people often lose faith in their own judgment. They hesitate, second guess, avoid taking risks. But the comeback requires rebuilding that trust, not instantly, but gradually. Every time you show up for yourself, every time you keep a promise, every time you follow through, every time you make a difficult decision that aligns with your future, you reinforce that you are capable. You strengthen the bond you have with yourself. And a person who trusts themselves becomes unstoppable. Strength is crafted. It's built in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the silent battles, in the moments no one witnesses. It's built through consistency, through choices that feel small but carry enormous weight over time. It's built by rejecting the temptation to slip back into comfort and choosing growth instead. When you rebuild with intention, you aren't just recovering, you're reinventing, you're engineering a version of yourself who can withstand more, achieve more, and demand more from life. Your comeback is not about returning. It's about rising into someone entirely new. And that transformation begins with the decision to rebuild on purpose, with purpose and for a purpose. Strength doesn't appear, it is crafted, and you are the one holding the tools. When you begin a comeback, people expect it to be loud. They expect big announcements, dramatic entrances, fireworks, and proclamations of change. But real comebacks don't start with noise. They start when you learn how to silence it. The noise around you, the noise within you, the noise from the world that tries to dictate who you should be and what you should settle for. And one of the hardest truths you'll ever accept is this: most people will not understand your comeback. They won't understand your silence, your distance, your discipline, your choices, or your growth. And they don't need to. When you're rebuilding your life, clarity often requires solitude. You start realizing that your energy has been stretched thin by people who never offered anything in return. You begin to see how much of your life was influenced by expectations you didn't even agree with. You see how much of your identity was shaped to make others comfortable. And suddenly, the noise that once seemed normal becomes unbearable. The voices that used to guide you begin to clash with your new direction. That's when the silence becomes not just a preference, but a necessity. Silencing the noise doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. It means creating a boundary between your mission and distractions. It means recognizing that your comeback is personal, and because it's personal, not everyone gets access to it. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your rebuilding process. Some people will only drain you. Some will doubt you. Some will dismiss you. Some will try to keep you exactly where you are because that version of you serves them more than the version you're becoming. When you begin to rise, people react. Some are inspired. Some are intimidated. Some are confused. And some simply don't care until the results show. That's why they can't be the compass for your comeback. You cannot rely on their approval or understanding because their vision is limited by their own fears, their own experiences, their own expectations. Your journey is not their journey. Your lessons are not their lessons. Your purpose is not their purpose. And once you truly embrace that, something powerful happens. Their opinions lose their grip on your decisions. Most people won't understand why you suddenly stop explaining yourself. They won't understand why you distance yourself from certain conversations, environments, or relationships. They won't understand why your priorities shift, why you stop showing up to things that don't align with your growth, or why you stop entertaining chaos. They may interpret your silence as arrogance, coldness, or unpredictability, but silence for you is strategy. You silence the noise so you can hear your own voice again. The voice you've ignored. The voice you drowned in people-pleasing. The voice you muted because you thought everyone else knew better. Silence gives you space to rebuild your identity without the pressure of opinions. Silence gives you space to ask harder questions. Who am I without their expectations? Who am I when I stop shrinking? Who am I when I start honoring what I truly want? The reality is, some people are not meant to understand your comeback because they never understood your struggle to begin with. They didn't feel the weight you carried. They didn't fight the battles you fought. They didn't experience the nights you spent questioning your worth, your direction, your strength. They only saw the surface. They only saw the version of you that smiled through the pain. So, of course, they won't fully grasp your transformation. They never fully saw your breaking. You must learn to be okay with being misunderstood. You must learn to continue moving forward, even when the world questions your steps. Because the most powerful comebacks happen quietly. They happen when you stop trying to prove yourself and start trying to build yourself. They happen when you choose to silence the noise long enough to reconnect with your truth. Silence the noise of comparison. When you stop comparing your journey to others, you free yourself to grow at your own pace. You stop chasing illusions and start focusing on reality. Your reality. Silence the noise of doubt, not the doubts from others, but the doubts within you. That internal voice that questions whether you're capable, worthy, or ready. That voice is not truth, it is fear. Let it speak, but don't let it lead. Silence the noise of pressure. You don't have to rebuild at lightning speed. You don't have to prove you're okay. You don't have to live up to the image others have of you. Growth is not performance, it's personal, it's raw, it's imperfect, it's messy. And the beauty of your comeback lies in the parts no one sees. Silence also exposes who should remain in your life and who shouldn't. Pay attention to how people react when you choose yourself. Pay attention to who respects your boundaries and who gets offended by them. Pay attention to who supports your growth and who resists it. Your silence will reveal more than your words ever could. The right people will stay connected even when you're quiet. The wrong people will drift away the minute you stop feeding them access to your energy. and let them. Your comeback is not a group project. It's not a community vote. It's not a performance for validation. It is your reconstruction, your awakening, your evolution. Some people are not meant to join you on the next level because they were only assigned to the chapter you're leaving behind. When you silence the noise, you create room for focus. You create room for discipline. You create room for healing. You create room for the future you're building. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. And in that silence, strength grows, clarity grows, confidence grows. You begin to trust your own voice more than the voices around you. You begin to move differently, think differently, and choose differently. Your comeback doesn't need to be understood to be valid. It doesn't need permission to be powerful. It only needs your commitment. Let the world misunderstand your silence. Let them underestimate your transformation. Let them wonder why you disappeared, why you changed, why you stopped explaining. They will understand when the results speak for themselves. By then, the noise will no longer matter, because when you silence the noise, you don't just reclaim your focus. You reclaim yourself. A comeback isn't just about rising. It's about rising with purpose. It's about becoming the person you desperately needed during the moment you fell apart. When life knocks you to the ground, you aren't just broken, you're exposed. You see your weaknesses, your fears, your insecurities, and the parts of yourself you kept avoiding. But you also see something else of the person you wished you had beside you. The version of you who would have had the strength, clarity, courage, and resilience you needed in that moment. And that version is exactly who you must build your comeback around. Most people think a comeback is about getting back what they lost: money, confidence, relationships, stability, opportunities. But the deeper truth is this: the comeback is not about reclaiming something external. It's about transforming internally. It's about becoming someone who can walk into the next chapter with a level of strength the old version of you didn't have. It's about rising into a self that is wiser, tougher, and more grounded than the one who fell. When everything falls apart, you begin to realize that the person you needed most was not someone from the outside. It was a stronger version of yourself. Someone who would have reminded you of your worth when you forgot it. Someone who would have set boundaries when you stayed silent. Someone who would have protected your peace instead of sacrificing it. Someone who would have trusted their intuition rather than doubting it. Someone who would have been brave enough to walk away from what hurt rather than clinging to it out of fear. Your comeback is about building that version of you. It's about becoming the person who would have kept you from falling as hard as you did, and that doesn't happen overnight. It requires honesty. It requires accountability. It requires the courage to look at yourself and admit, I deserved better than the choices I made, and I'm not going to repeat them. It requires deciding that you will never again abandon yourself for the sake of comfort, approval, or fear. Because the person you needed when you fell would have never abandoned you. Rising with purpose means you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You don't just hope things get better, you build habits, mindsets, and environments that make better inevitable. You start choosing situations that align with your values instead of situations that trigger your wounds. You start saying no to what drains you and yes to what strengthens you. You begin designing a life that supports your growth instead of sabotaging it. The person you needed when you fell would have been focused, disciplined, self-respecting, emotionally strong, and unapologetically committed to your well-being. So now your comeback becomes a mission to develop those qualities within yourself. Not for approval, not for validation, not to prove anything to anyone, but because you deserve to become the version of you who can protect your heart and your future. One of the most important parts of rising with purpose is learning from the fall, not resenting it. The fall wasn't just a moment of failure. It was a moment of revelation. It revealed the cracks in your foundation. It revealed the people who were never meant to stay. It revealed how much of your life you were living to please others. It revealed the spaces where you lacked confidence, trust, preparation, and courage. And as painful as it was, it taught you exactly what you need to build next. Your purpose is hidden in the lessons of your lowest moments. Another part of rising with purpose is developing wisdom. The person you needed during your fall wouldn't just be strong, they would be wise. They would know the difference between persistence and self-destruction. They would recognize the difference between loyalty and self-sacrifice. They would understand the difference between love and attachment. They would not chase what diminishes you or cling to what harms you. Wisdom is not something you are born with. It's forged through experience, especially painful ones. And now you get to turn that pain into guidance. Rising with purpose also requires compassion for yourself. You cannot build a strong version of you from a place of self-loathing. You cannot rise out of shame. You cannot grow while attacking yourself. The person you needed when you fell would have been patient with you. They would have reminded you that mistakes are part of being human. They would have encouraged you to rest, recover, and rebuild without guilt. So now you must learn to treat yourself with the same compassion you would have wanted back then, not softness that lets you stagnate, but kindness that fuels your growth. And as you rise with purpose, you begin to discover something powerful. You are not the same person who fell. You're more observant, more aware, more intentional, more protective of your peace. You no longer tolerate what once drained you. You no longer shrink for the comfort of others. You no longer ignore the quiet voice inside you trying to guide you. You start moving through life with a sense of grounded strength, not desperation. Eventually, the moment comes when you realize you're not rebuilding your old life, you're building a new one. You're building a life that reflects the person you were always meant to become. The fall didn't destroy you, it refined you. It carved out everything that wasn't aligned with your future. And now you're rising with clarity, purpose, and conviction. The comeback is about rising so powerfully that the next time life tries to break you, it realizes it no longer has the same leverage. You're not rising to prove others wrong. You're rising to prove to yourself that the fall was not your end. It was your awakening. You become the person who keeps yourself safe. You become the person who gives yourself permission. You become the person who refuses to settle. You become the person who acts with intention. You become the person who leads your life instead of surviving it. That is the purpose of your comeback. You rise not just to recover, but to transform, not just to move on, but to evolve, not just to survive, but to become the person you once needed, the person you now deserve to be. That is your mission now. That is your purpose. And once you rise with that intention, there is no force in the world capable of pulling you back down. In the end, your comeback is not about proving anything to anyone. It's about proving to yourself that you were never meant to stay where you fell. You didn't go through everything you went through just to return to an old version of yourself. You went through it to rise into someone stronger, wiser, more focused, and more intentional. Someone who refuses to shrink, refuses to settle, and refuses to abandon themselves ever again. You've learned that pain is data. You've learned that strength is crafted. You've learned that silence is power. And you've learned that rising with purpose means becoming the person you needed when you were at your lowest. This is not a story of defeat. This is a story of awakening. Your comeback is personal. It is sacred. It is yours. And the world doesn't need to understand it for it to be real. What matters is that you keep going, that you keep choosing yourself, that you keep showing up for the life you're building, even on the days when no one sees it, when no one claps, when no one understands. Because one day, the version of you that fought through the darkness, the confusion, the heartbreak, the setbacks, and the silence will look back and say, I didn't just survive, I rebuilt, I rose, I became. So take a breath, stand tall, step forward. Your comeback isn't ahead of you. It has already begun.